For reference, I'm a female, and this is something that happened to me about 26 years ago when I was 22 and living with my mom and stepdad in a small community known as Juniper Woods Ranch, which sat just outside of a small town in Arizona. Juniper Woods Ranch got its name from the juniper trees that enveloped the landscape of the community. The roads at that time were unpaved and rough in certain spots, and when it rained, it was extremely difficult to get in or out because the creeks would flood and the red clay. Anyway, one day my friend Marilyn, who lived about 2 miles further up from where we lived, came over and asked me if I wanted to spend the weekend with her at her place and if I wanted to go to Jerome with her the next day. I said, "Yes, that sounds like fun." So I packed up some things and we got into her truck and drove off towards her house. Now, the further you get back into Juniper Woods, the more isolated and scarce the population becomes. And now you are surrounded by nothing but trees and silence. We got to her house and I settled in, and we began to talk about different things that girls talk about. Later that evening, as she was cooking dinner, I decided I would go and explore around her property and just enjoy the quiet and the beauty of my surroundings. The whole time I was outside, the air felt heavy. I always felt like something was watching me, and I just felt completely uneasy. Well, anyway, later we ate dinner, and she asked me if I wanted to watch a movie, and I said, "Sure thing." So, she asked me if I have ever seen the movie The Howling, and I told her, "Yeah, I think once." She said, "Great, that's the movie we're watching." And I go, "Cool." She puts the movie in and she goes into the kitchen to make us some popcorn and also something to drink. And when she returned, she started the movie. We started watching it and now I remembered why I only watched it once. There's just something about The Howling that unnerves me and literally scares me to death. I don't know. Maybe it's the way it invokes almost raw and pure fear inside of me, which is why I won't watch it. And even to this day, I still have nightmares. Well, after the movie was over, she said, "We need to go to sleep. We've got a long and busy day tomorrow." And I said, "Okay, cool." And we said goodnight and she went off to her room. Her house had 4 large windows in her living room and did not have curtains on them. As I laid on the couch, the light from the moon that hung high that night illuminated almost the entire room. Feeling myself dozing off, I rolled over, got comfortable, and covered my head. I don't know how long I've laid there before I heard this low guttural growl and heavy breathing, thinking to myself, "Okay, you just watched the horror movie and your mind is playing tricks on you, and I need to stop scaring myself." As I was trying to get comfortable, I heard the noise again. For whatever reason, I took my head out from under the covers, and I wished to God that I hadn't. Standing not but a few feet away from me, there was something very large, hairy, and staring at me with human-like eyes and intense anger. I quickly threw the covers back over my head and laid there frozen and shaking, thinking, at any time, this creature was going to attack me and possibly kill me. Again, I don't know how long I laid there, when it seemed like it had moved closer to me, because its breathing and growling sounded closer and I could feel its hot breath on me. The smell was overwhelmingly nauseating, and I fought back the urge to throw up. I took my head out from under the covers again, and it had moved closer, and I could just now make out what the creature looked like. This creature had to have stood over 7 feet tall, had a head and a snout like a wolf, and hair like a wire brush. Its arms were semi-long and it had razor-sharp claws. Its legs looked deformed. They didn't look like they should be able to hold that kind of weight or height. And its teeth, oh dear God, its teeth! They were long and yellow, and its mouth was dripping with drool. I tried to let out a scream, but nothing would come out, frozen and unable to move. I just laid there staring at whatever the hell this thing was as it stared back at me. I don't know if it was from pure fear, but I must have passed out because the next thing I know, my friend Marilyn is waking me up and telling me that breakfast is done. She stops and looks at me and goes, "Are you all right, hon? You don't look so good." I couldn't say anything, but what she asked me next terrified me just as much as the creature did. She asked me how I slept and did I see anything scary last night. I don't know what it was, or if it was just my imagination. Was my friend Marilyn a skinwalker? I don't know, because I never went back to stay the night at her house again. Hello, you can refer to me as Ricky. This story takes place in Washington State in a small town near Seattle. It took place in around the winter of this year, 2021. To set the scene, it was around January. Me and my friends, who we'll call N and J, were hanging around at their house. They were twins. We decided that it would be fun to have a sleepover. In Washington during January, it's pretty cold and turns dark around 4 p.m. At around 5 p.m., we decided to go into their hot tub, which was located in their backyard, in this neighborhood in which it was pretty much a cul-de-sac of some sorts. Behind the houses was a backyard that was connected to a small forest that had a fence blocking a steep drop that led to a small creek. Against the fence was a small playset with a child-sized rock wall, hut, slide, and swings in the backyard that led to a very large soccer or baseball field that sat right against an elementary school. To give a better picture of the street, the neighborhood is on the left, a field in the middle, an elementary school on the right with a forest behind them all. I'm sorry for the long explanation. Anyway, we were chilling in the hot tub playing Truth or Dare and being normal 14-year-olds, which gave us a full view of the previously mentioned playset. I have always been afraid of what could be lurking in the dark, so I kept my view on the dark playset as much as I could. After around an hour or so, around 6 p.m., we decided to get out and we grabbed our towels and started drying ourselves off as the once quiet forest became quieter. Sort of like J, N, and I were the only things on the face of the planet. Being somewhat scared, I rushed inside and my friends quickly following. When we got inside, we sat in the living room playing Halo Master Chief Collection, and after a few hours, we got a strange energy boost and decided to go on a walk. And at this point, it was around 9:45 p.m. We walked out the back door and went to the gate that separated the neighborhood from the field. We walked through the field to the school with no issues, as we've done this many times already. We played games, told jokes, and eventually ended up at the other end of the field, which was being watered by sprinklers. It was around 11 p.m. at this point, and we decided that we should get back home. We started talking about how what we did was just like a coming-of-age movie and kept talking about how amazing it was. We got around within 40 to 50 feet from the gate that separated the two areas as I saw something with a small baseball part of the field around 80 feet away. Ann already had his phone out, so I asked him to shine his light on it. The light could barely reach it, only giving us a barely visible silhouette. Although we could barely see, two things were apparent. It was large and around 8 feet tall or so, but it also had bright glowing eyes similar to dogs' or cats' eyes at night. We all stopped, confused at what exactly are we looking at, before I broke the silence saying, "I don't know what that is, but we're running." We all started to dart towards the gate, and the creature didn't start to move until we got around 10 feet or so from the gate. It then stood up. It got taller, and I'm not sure by how much since I didn't really get a very good look, but I was sure it was getting closer. I got to the gate first, and the moment I got there, I felt completely cold and a weird numb sensation. I always struggled opening that gate, but I opened that gate faster than I have ever had before, and we all ran towards the house. Only around 15 feet away from the gate behind us, Ann trips and quickly scrambles up. I looked behind me to make sure Ann was okay, but quickly changed my glance towards the glowing eyes that loomed over the fence, watching us as if it was satisfied with our reactions. We ended up making it home safe, but it wasn't over there. I decided that I'd sleep in Ann's room, which could have been the worst decision I made. Ann's room had a window that looked over the backyard, and although I couldn't see what was outside due to me being on the floor, using my blankets as some sort of protection, every now and then I'd hear a tap on the window. We were on the second floor. Ann was fast asleep, leaving me too afraid to wake him up just in case it were to attack me. When I got in its view from the window, I laid there for what felt like hours until the tapping finally stopped. But when it stopped, I heard something that scared the living hell out of me. A small chuckle or some sort of satisfied grunt. I wasn't able to fall asleep that night, but when daylight struck, I woke up Ann and explained my experience. For reference, I am a female, and this happened to me in the summer of 1984 when I was 13 years old. Well, anyways, that summer, my parents sent me and my twin sisters to camp for the summer. For obvious reasons, I will be changing the name of the camp to Camp Up High. Camp Up High is located in the Angeles National Forest near Mount Wilson, which is 52 miles from Long Beach, California. Anyways, we get to the camp and are introduced to our camp counselors and given a tour of the camp. I immediately fell in love with it because it was beautiful. But my twin sisters didn't seem too happy. Well, anyways, later that night after dinner, the counselors gathered all of us together around a campfire to tell stories, roast marshmallows, and make s'mores. About a week after getting to camp and during dinner, one of the counselors named Running Rooster told us the next day that we would be getting up early and going on a hike to another campground where we would be spending the night. Getting up the next morning and after breakfast, we all went to our cabins and gathered up our camping stuff and met up with the counselors at the snack barn. After the counselors made sure that we were all there, we started off on our hike. I remember being excited because I have always loved the outdoors. Now mind you, this was during the 80s. long before cell phones and social media. So, hearing stories about cryptids, skinwalkers, and dogmen were unheard of. And I remember how beautiful everything was, and the smell of the fresh pine trees and the sounds of nature echoed around me. I also remember that while walking on the trail, a group of trees to my left, and hearing a sound that kind of startled me at first, but when I looked, I realized it was a group of soldiers on the ground for a training mission. While standing there and watching them, it dawned on me that I was way behind my group. So, in a hurry to get caught up with them, I didn't notice how quiet everything became around me. After crossing a small stream to catch my breath and realizing that it was too quiet, I kind of started getting scared because I still didn't hear or see my group. That's when I first heard something moving diagonally to the right of me. That's also when I smelled whatever it was. Darting my head to the right, that's when I saw it. It was standing half behind one of the pine trees. In shock and unable to move or scream, I just stood there, staring at whatever this was. Whatever this creature was, I know it had to stand at least 7 to 8 feet tall. All of its body was covered in semi-long brownish hair except for its face. It almost looked like human, but its arms were longer than they should have been, and its hands were huge. This thing was large, and its legs didn't look like it could hold its weight. And I remember how god-awful it smelled. I almost wanted to puke. After standing there for what seemed like forever, I heard my name being called off in the distance, breaking me out of my trance. I took off running towards the group. That's when I realized whatever that was chasing me. Hearing my name again, I ran even faster because I just wanted to get the hell away from it and be safe. After getting back with my group, I realized it had stopped chasing me, so I started calming down. And that's when one of my sisters asked what was wrong, and I told her, Nothing's wrong. I don't know what I saw that day, and still don't, but I can tell you, it was not natural nor human, and it's something that I have never forgotten and is forever burned in my memory. This happened to my brother and I in the summer of '95. I was 24 and he was 22. We lived with our mom out in the open desert at a place called Whispering Ranch, which was about 10 to 20 miles in any direction from the nearest town. The roads weren't paved, and we didn't have electricity or running water. Because of that, we had to haul our water in from town, and the only means of light we had were kerosene lanterns and flashlights. One day, our mom asked us if we could walk down to her friend John's place and pick up some tools that she needed for a project that she was going to do the next day. We told her yeah, then headed out across the desert. It took less time because John lived about a mile away. There would still be half a mile between us and the road to John's house. So anyway, we got to John's and sit under the shade to drink some water while he goes and gets the tools for our mom. He comes back and gives us the tools. We put them down and decided to stay and visit a little bit because it was scorching. After the sunset, we realized it had gotten darker, and the only means of light that we had was a flashlight. We told him we had to leave, so we grabbed the tools for our mom and said goodbye. We left and started to walk down the road. While walking home, we decided to cut across the desert to get home faster. We got halfway across the desert before it sounded like something was following us. At first, we didn't pay attention to it because out there, it wasn't uncommon to hear an animal at night. The further we walked, the sound of something breathing got closer and closer. My brother stopped and turned to see what was following us. That's when he saw it. 2 glowing red eyes staring at us. He tugged my arm, shushing me. He told me to move slowly, be quiet, and don't look back. I didn't listen to him. Turning around, I saw the eyes and screamed. We took off running towards our moms, and that's when it started chasing us. I ended up tripping, hitting my face on the ground. Between the night sky and our light, there was no telling where we were going. When I got up, I saw red eyes and I screamed for my brother. He came back and grabbed me, shoving the flashlight in my hand, and we started running again, and so did the thing chasing us. By this time, we were scared. There was nothing to protect us from whatever was chasing us. Somehow, for a brief moment, my brother and I got separated, and that's when I fell again, rolling over onto my back. I sat up, pointing the flashlight into the direction of the animal, and that's when we saw what was chasing us. It was huge. I imagined if it stood, it would be about 8 feet tall. It had long, shiny black hair and a snout like a wolf, long, sharp claws, and it smelled like rotten flesh. It snarled at us, looking with its dead, cold eyes. We were scared, frozen in place at the sight in front of us. My brother snapped out of his trance, dragging me up to my feet. We wasted no time running as the creature screeched at us with a horrendous force. The creature pursued us quickly, and I could feel its hot breath on the back of my legs. I thought it was going to get me at any second. Just then, the light of a bonfire came into view. We ran towards it, seeing my mom and family members. We collapsed in front of them terrified, and for a few minutes, we couldn't even talk. They looked at us in confusion, wondering what we were worked up about. When we told them what happened, nobody believed us. They laughed and called us chickens because they thought there was nothing to be afraid of. The next morning, I woke up and went into the kitchen. My mom looks at me, wide-eyed, and in a shocked tone, she yells at me. "Patricia, come here. What is that on the back of your leg?" Confused, I replied, "What do you mean, Mom?" She points at my thigh. "Look!" On my right thigh are 3 large scratch marks, almost blood red. Last night during the chase, it must have scratched me. I guess I didn't notice at that time due to the adrenaline rushing through me. Well, needless to say, we never walked out there after dark again. Hi, I'm not sure if this is the right place to post this, but it's been freaking me out for the past few days since it's happened, and I wanted to see if anyone had any advice. I want to start by saying that everything that I'm about to talk about is true, and if you don't believe me, well, I'm sorry. I live in the woods in Northwest Ohio. My house is back about half a mile in the woods, down a long driveway, and my property is surrounded by trees from each side, except for the back, which has a field that alternates soybeans and corn every year. We're a few minutes away from a very small village and about half an hour out from bigger towns. I just wanted to give some background into the area before I say what happens, in case that helps at all. I've had weird stuff happen before. I've encountered what I think are not deers. Once there was one in my yard walking around apple trees, which isn't uncommon, but the thing was huge and ugly, and it just looked wrong. There was also one next to a country road I was driving down with my friend once. A few years ago, I was dog sitting before I had a dog, and I was out with a dog walking near the field, and he turned around as there was a huge splash in our pond, and he started growling and howling. Other than that, the dog was really friendly, and I'd never heard him growl before. I joked saying it was a frogman, like the Loveland frogman, but ignored it for the most part. Last year, my family got a dog of our own, and he's a hound dog, so he chases and barks at everything. But sometimes, he gets weird about that pond too, and he'll growl and howl at it. He doesn't really growl other than that. But the incident that I came here to talk about happened a few days ago. This year is a corn year in the field behind our house, which I always hate because I can't see out past the first couple rows, and I've always thought it's creepy. Before crops are planted, I like to rock hound and metal detect in the field and the surrounding fields, so I know the land very well. I have found Native American artifacts in the field before too, and there's a couple woods scattered throughout the fields, and a big creek runs through it too. I mainly stick to the field directly behind my house because I don't want to wander out far, and the farthest out I've gone is probably no more than a mile. A couple days ago, I was out with my dog, walking along the line of dirt between the trees in the back of my property and the field, when my dog started growling at the corn. It obviously scared the hell out of me, and I was yelling at him, telling him to stop. When I was little, we would get coyotes around there too, so I figured it was a coyote. Since I didn't want myself or my dog to get hurt by the coyote, I started walking back to the house. But my dog wasn't having it. He was pulling on the leash, baying and howling and losing his mind. He doesn't usually bay and howl like that, unless he's tread a squirrel. So the fact that he was just screaming into the corn freaked me out. We started walking again, and then I heard a cat meow from the corn. I was like, oh, okay, it's just a cat. Cool. But I have a cat, and there's plenty of barn cats that cross our property, and my dog has never lost his mind over a cat like that before. So I kept tugging on his leash, and I'm like, dude, let's go. You're freaking me out. And the cat keeps meowing. And it's getting like uncomfortably loud for a cat meow. It sounded like it was a lot closer than it was. And then, the cat started growling, but it sounded like a big dog, like big growls. Then the corn started rustling, bigger than what a cat could do. Luckily, at that point, I was just about back to my yard, and the growling kind of developed into what sounded like a yell or a scream from a person. I was dragging my dog, and my dog was growling. His hair on his back was sticking up, and I was scared and shaking. It was absolutely terrifying. I went back into my house and told my family what happened, and they were just like, okay, cool, whatever. But I was nearly in tears. It was scary. Again, I don't know if this is the right place to leave this story, so I'm sorry if it isn't. But those sounds have been replaying in my mind over and over, and I'd love to get some explanation or something on what happened out there. Nothing like that has happened since, not that I wanted to. And like I said, this is a true encounter. But yeah, if anyone has any explanation or advice, please let me know. Update. In the past couple weeks, I haven't heard anything like that, but my dog growls when we walk back near that area sometimes. And we've found a couple dead birds on the edge of my yard and the field, which is weird because there's nothing back there to hurt them, like windows or anything that they could fly into. So something's definitely been dumping them back there. And starting 2 days ago, I smell a bigger dead animal in the field, but I'm not gonna go investigate that. Hello everyone, it's your creepy sister here. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate each and every one of you. But I would also like to thank my amazing patrons, my top tippers, and my dearest channel members. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it with all of my heart. If you want to support the channel further, you can also choose to become a patron, a tipper, or a channel member. But remember, it's appreciated, but never a requirement. Server, Twitter, Instagram, and others. You can connect with me and send your stories there. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't yet, and comments are highly appreciated. And remember, your fear feeds me.